Warzone Integration is happening on November 14th, and one of the big things that you always want to do, try to make sure you get your guns ready, but there's a huge problem when it comes to BO6 and having your guns leveled for the integration. As you can see, I've essentially no-lifed this game. I've done the Easter egg stuff, I've done dark matter, which means I've done all the camos in multiplayer, still got to do the ones in zombies. As you can see, my level is crazy, level 53, prestige 4, so I've played the game quite a bit, and that's not some kind of flex, because even with all that playtime and getting dark matter, as you can see, I still haven't maxed out a majority of the guns, not even half of the guns, which I'll go ahead and show you in a quick second here. I want to go ahead and show you when I click on the weapon here, I can click the attachment. At the top you can see this weapon is level 31 out of 45. Most of the guns in this game top out around 45, 46, 47. Some of the pistols much lower, around the 30s. The point is that the leveling is much higher than it was in MW2 or MW3, but not nearly as high as Vanguard or MW 2019, where the weapon levels went all the way up to level 70. So obviously it's going to be a problem, but the main reason is it's going to limit the number of weapons you're going to be able to max out before launch. And I want to kind of guide you in the right direction of maybe some ones that you can start with if you're looking to level, because again, I think this is going to be a little bit of a problem, especially when we get into the numbers. True Game Data already updated this on his site. It has the Black Ops 6 there. I believe the Warzone part is going to probably have different numbers, and that's what makes this particularly difficult. And once we look at the numbers, you'll kind of see why. I've gone through and I pulled up various weapons. I put them into my normal spreadsheet so we can kind of take a look at them and see how they compare. We have the typical spreadsheet which you guys have seen over the past year or years when it comes to Warzone. And we normally like to see the TTK of the close range meta somewhere around 600 TTK. 600 is kind of that sweet spot where things kill fast enough to feel good, but not slow enough to feel like trash. It's kind of like that happy medium where you're not going to get deleted, and then also you're going to be able to take on multiple people, maybe finesse. And then usually the long range, depending on the recoil of the weapon, is usually around 900 to 1000, maybe 1100 on the top end at the furthest range. And then usually that 45-meter range want a pretty solid TTK between 700 and 800. Great, we're familiar with the meta, but when we switch over to the Black Ops 6 weapons, we kind of have a problem. The close range, the fastest killing gun in the game, if we kept damage values as is the Compact 92, which doesn't feel great in multiplayer, but right here it has a 770 TTK, which basically makes it completely non-viable. Same thing when it comes to the long range side of the meta. Majority of these guns are basically non-viable. So what that leads me to believe, the damage values are going to be completely different, which is kind of a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. The bad thing is that we can't really predict what is going to be the meta, or even kind of have an inkling of which ones you should probably level up. Based off feel, there's plenty that do feel good. I think the Model L is going to be amazing in Warzone. The handling and all those, it feels like an STG, especially when you get the blueprint for it in the game. It ends up looking like the STG from World War II, or like we have currently within Warzone. And then there's a couple other standouts where maybe they feel like they have good recoil or handling, and they allow you to kind of perform well. The Tanto feels great in multiplayer, but I think the slow fire rate's going to have some of the issues that kind of that the WSP9 also has, where it's just slow enough where people want to avoid it. The good thing is that we're going to end up having a rebalancing, is kind of what we've been talking about for a couple months now. When they told us in that private meeting with content creators, they essentially said they plan to do an overhaul when it comes to Warzone, and I don't think that these are the numbers that they're talking about or leaning towards. I think it's going to be getting things closer to the happy medium, so you'll have more flexible options. And I think ideally this is where they want to take the game, because at the end of the day, more casuals being able to jump in and use the weapons that they've leveled up in the past is going to be a good thing. Obviously, there's probably going to be a couple standouts from the new game that will make its way into the meta, but in general, I think they want to have a wider meta, and I think this is leaning towards it in the fact that these things have to be completely different, and Warzone will now be completely differently balanced than multiplayer. I think there were some levers in there where Sledgehammer had a little bit of control, which were holding things up. And previously before that, IW kind of had a little hand in it. Now I think Raven will have a little bit more autonomy, at least from the outside looking in. That looks how it's been. And for even more perspective, you can see how many guns I've maxed out and how far they are off from their current level. And overall, if I max out all the guns in the game, it'd be 855 levels, not including the ones that don't matter, like the launchers and the knife and the bat. Those don't get attachments, so you don't care about leveling those, even though you can level those in the game. I'm about 400 levels away from maxing everything out. Some of them pretty close, some of them incredibly far. If I was using double XP, I maxed out the gun, it wasn't an issue. I'm still going to grind a little bit of zombies. We got a couple weeks before the integration, so I have a little bit of time. But for the new player coming into it, it's going to be a little bit of a struggle if you're needing to start from scratch. So I think they need to add more double XP weekends, more XP opportunities for people, speed up the leveling and make it less of a chore, because I think the game should be a lot more about using the weapons than necessarily leveling the weapons. And I think most people kind of agree to that. So like I said, a couple standouts are going to be this Model L, which is essentially like an STG. Low recoil, feels pretty good. I also like the AK-74. I like the AK-47 in pretty much every iteration of Call of Duty. So this one's a pretty solid one, a little bit higher recoil. Gonna feel like the AMAX, a little bit faster fire rate than your AK-47 that usually comes in at 600. This comes in a little bit faster than that, pretty solid. ASVAL has a little bit of an ammunition problem. Maybe it's going to be amazing for up close. I wouldn't expect that. I think the AIMS is probably going to be that low recoil Krieg Kilo type weapon. So if you're more of a fan of that, so those are like 3 weapons. Unfortunately, XM4 might not make it into that just because of other recoil things, handling issues. But those 3, probably the ones I would lean towards. Find out which one you like, test it out in the private match, maybe level that one to feel how good that is. SMGs, this one's really tricky. I think the PP919, which is basically the Bullfrog, that one will feel pretty good. I think the Jackal Beta felt great, not as much feeling great in the multiplayer, but I think in handling, it feels good. As long as the TTK is good, that could be a solid option. The Tanto, I think, will be a little bit slow. The other ones, I'm not really sure how that's going to work. Shotguns, probably this first one, if it's a 2-tap, would be kind of broken. Otherwise, I don't really see using the shotguns. LMGs, I didn't really lean towards any ones. I won't recommend any of those. Marksman rifles, 3-round burst. These are basically tactical rifles. The SWAT's okay, maybe with rapid fire or something, but long range meta, it gets a little bit tricky. Sniper rifles, I don't know. I think it makes it incredibly difficult. And then the machine pistol could be good, especially since overkill isn't going to be the main option. I think machine pistols are generally a good way to go unless you have a solid trigger finger. I think the Strider could be a lot of fun in there. So just a couple bit of recommendations. I'm going to have these maxed by the time the integration happens. I just want to kind of help you out and kind of bring some awareness to this problem, because I think it will be an issue when it comes to launch if not enough of the MW2 and MW3 weapons are properly integrated with BO6 to make them also viable for people who played those previous iterations or are only free-to-play players, especially if Plunder potentially might not be there at launch since it hasn't been confirmed. Either way, appreciate all the support. Thank you for watching as always. Have a great day.